The big challenge with cement and how we can solve it. Picture a modest skyscraper, around 100 meters tall with 30 floors. A building like this almost certainly relies on concrete, which contains cement. For this example, about 6,000 tons of cement were used, releasing roughly 4,600 metric tons of carbon into the atmosphere. That's equivalent to driving a car 12 million miles. Now imagine multiplying that across every building worldwide. And even that wouldn't have fully captured cement's carbon footprint. Consider sidewalks, streets, dams, power plants, and other infrastructure. Cement production alone is responsible for 8% of global carbon emissions, more than aviation and shipping combined. Much of this comes from China's rapid construction boom. In just 2 years, China produced more cement than the entire US did in the 20th century. Other developing nations will follow suit, using huge amounts of cement for cities and infrastructure. If we hope to reach net zero in a few decades, we'll need ways to construct buildings like this without emissions. It's a big task, but there are solutions. This is a typical cement plant. These operate in almost every region of the world. The kiln, a long rotating tube, and the preheater tower are where most emissions happen. Roughly 40% comes from burning fuel to heat the kiln to 1,450 degrees Celsius. The preheater tower, where limestone, clays, and additives are dropped, hits about 850 degrees. That heat releases the stored carbon dioxide in the limestone, accounting for the remaining 60% of emissions. One question is whether we can simply use less concrete. Often, designs use 2 to 3 times more concrete than necessary. Engineers and architects overbuild because concrete is reliable, helps avoid lawsuits, and ensures safety. Foundations and columns rely on concrete's compressive strength, so replacement is tricky. Still, we can cut down where it's not structurally essential. I visited Scotland's new Parliament building, designed with greenhouse gases in mind. Concrete and steel were only used where needed, while laminated wood handled other structural elements. Smart, carbon-conscious design can reduce emissions significantly. Completely replacing concrete, though, isn't feasible right now. Even so, reducing excess concrete could cut emissions in a high-rise by about 26%. That's a start. But more is needed. Next, let's tackle how cement is made. The 40% of emissions from firing the kiln is one target. Cement plants usually burn coal, petroleum coke, or natural gas to reach 1,150 degrees Celsius. Electrifying the process is possible, but achieving that temperature electrically is very difficult. Some startups, like a Finnish company, are experimenting. Meanwhile, plants have shifted to alternative fuels. High heat makes cement plants ideal for incinerating industrial waste, trash, or used tires. Limestone in the kiln scrubs harmful emissions, reducing overall output. Switching fuels can lower emissions by about 7%. Still, we have a long way to go. The other major source of emissions comes from the limestone itself. When heated, it becomes clinker, the binding ingredient in cement, which makes up roughly 10% of concrete, but causes most of its emissions. One solution is replacing clinker. Startups are racing to create green cement that avoids clinker entirely, but no substitute matches limestone-based cement in abundance or commercial viability yet. Adjusting formulas also takes time and rigorous safety testing, necessary as recent events in Turkey highlighted, where substandard cement and poor practices led to structural failures. In North America, clinker makes up about 90% of cement due to strict safety standards. Globally, the average was closer to 72% in 2020, thanks to clinker-like substitutes. New cement mixtures can safely lower the clinker ratio to 50% by adding more clay and unprocessed limestone. This existing technology complies with building codes and could halve emissions from cement and concrete. But even then, any clinker production generates unavoidable process emissions. This is where carbon capture and storage, CCS, comes in. The cement industry will need it. CCS involves capturing carbon from heat and chemical reactions and storing it underground. A plant in Norway is piloting this, storing carbon in North Sea geological deposits. Some innovators are even injecting stored carbon back into cement, leveraging rock's natural ability to reabsorb carbon. Someday, our buildings and roads could act as carbon sinks, a surprising concept in urban construction. Achieving net zero for a building like this is possible, but it requires immediate action, especially in China, the world's largest cement producer. Here's a silver lining. The average US cement plant is 34 to 35 years old, while China AS is only 15. Many Chinese plants are more energy efficient and use less clinker than the global average. They also have at least one CCS project underway. However, China recently delayed its peak building emissions goal from 2025 to 2030. Changes to design and concrete composition are the easiest steps. CCS is still nascent and will be costly. Cement for this building might cost 115% more. Yet cement is a small fraction of total construction cost, making it feasible for governments to pay a green premium. The U.S. Inflation Reduction Act encourages this with tax credits of up to 85 per metric ton of carbon stored. Industries like cement once seemed impossible to decarbonize, but solutions now exist, and we can't afford inaction. As a follow-up, check out my colleague Phil Edwards' video on the world's tallest mass timber building in Milwaukee. He explains how using wood instead of steel or concrete reshapes construction. Wood won't replace all concrete globally, and scaling it up would triple timber harvesting. But it's one piece of the solution. Concrete remains a huge challenge, but with multiple strategies, smarter design, alternative materials, and carbon capture, we can tackle it. And yes, as Phil's video shows, these buildings can look amazing too.